Good afternoon, everyone. It's wonderful to be here together with all of you. This evening, we will have a talk by Colleen Busch, and as our Shuso, we have the opportunity to hear her speak several times during the practice period, and this is one of those times. This is an extended way-seeking mind talk. She already gave her original one about how she came here. And this will be more about practice today. Welcome, Colleen, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Linda. Can you all hear me okay? All right, it's good to see you all. Even my mom is in the house. Hi, Mom. So Linda Roshi has been inviting us to contemplate Genjo Koan in our daily life, like really in our daily life. How is our understanding of it unfolding, and how are we living? How are we Genjo Koaning as we move through our daily life? So today I want to talk about, my two primary practices, writing and Zen. How they're similar, how they're different, equal and distinct, and how they're intertwined and mutually supportive. So there's a quote from the writer Annie Dillard in a book called The Writing Life that I came across in graduate school that just went into my heart and never left it. And here's the quote: "Write as if you were dying. At the same time, assume you write for an audience consisting solely of terminal patients. That is, after all, the case." So this feels so true to me. It felt true then. It still feels true now. That I encountered that long before I encountered the message on the Han, that life is swiftly passing and don't waste time. And it doesn't mean that writers don't use humor or get playful or write about things that aren't so grave as death. But many writers are pretty fascinated with death because it is the great matter. And writers need to know when asking for someone's attention, you better make it worth their while because life is swiftly passing. So when I got this idea to kind of talk in this way, and I looked at Genjo Koan, I feel like so much of what Dogen says about the Buddha Dharma actually applies to the writing path. I didn't have to do much stretching to kind of graft them onto each other. And I kind of went through and thought about what are sort of the stages for me, in the writing process. And I would say, first of all, is just like a state of receptivity, maybe most akin to how we are when we're in Zazen. That, the gates of perception are open, everything is welcome, let it all kind of come in. Also, the idea of studying the self to forget the self. You can't really write anything that's going to resonate with anyone else if you're not willing to first go deep into yourself and look around and know yourself. Then you can offer something to someone else. So you've got to go deep into yourself, and then you've actually got to get out of your own way, so you can't stay there. I love this line in the Genjo Koan: "The ocean is neither round nor square. Its features are infinite in variety." And what that reminds me of is I feel like when I'm writing, and for those of you who don't know, I kind of write in all the different forms. Lately, I've been doing more in poetry, which is sort of my first writing language. But I also write nonfiction, and I've written some fiction too, and some blending of them. But I like to try on different points of view when I'm writing. I like to see things from, get out of my own skin and see if I can see it from some other vantage, because really there are infinite ways to describe and understand and experience the world. So curiosity and wonder are the primary things, not knowing, not knowing. And I would say that at this stage of writing, it's like not even always conscious or willful. I definitely have had the experience of sort of working on things in my sleep, and I wake up and I suddenly know what I need to do next with something I've been working on, or I go on a walk, or anything, shift the focus away from the actual writing and my mind is still doing it. So the next, I'm sort of thinking about that as the receiving stage. And then I would say there's the recording stage. So you got to write things down when you're a writer. This is where it's different from Zazen. And I talked about this a little bit in my Way-Seeking Mind. It is a big koan for me because sometimes during Zazen, the mind is always different, right? Sometimes I'm kind of sleepy and dull. Sometimes it's like spark, spark, spark. Sometimes it's boring sparks. And sometimes it's really interesting to me. And I really want to follow those thought streams. So the discipline is to trust that if they're worth it, they're going to be there after the bell rings, and you'll see me out at the bulletin board, writing, or you'll see me getting out a notebook. The thing I do a lot lately is this thing, the voice memo. I am constantly throughout the day making little voice memos to myself, things I see, ideas I have. I have so many by now, it'll be a nightmare to clear them someday. And then there's this kind of phase where you can't disperse the energy. So when I do have an idea for something, I have to really honor a process of unfolding, and I can't talk about it to people, because if I do, I'm not going to have that kind of energy that I need to spend with it, exploring it on the page. So it's kind of like a delicate little seedling, at that state that you need to protect. And here's another quote from Dogen's Writing Craft Manual. Do not suppose that what you realize becomes your knowledge and is grasped by your consciousness. So, free writing for me, where I don't have a plan, I don't have a subject in mind, I don't even have a goal, is a really important practice to maintain, sort of like Julia Cameron's morning pages, such a vital practice just to get out of my mind and body what is in there and tap into sort of what I know but don't know that I know, is how I would think about it. And then there's the next sort of shift, feels like a bit of a shift in the process for me, is abiding. So, in both Zazen and in my writing practice, you take your seat and you got to stay there. There's one writer, Ron Carlson, who just says, "Butt in chair." You got to stay there and put in the time. The seeds don't sprout, they don't grow and flourish if you don't put the energy there. So, then it's kind of a dance between whatever these ideas that have come up in free writing and maybe a form that is starting to emerge, and being able to help that form emerge. And this is true of prose and poetry too. I'm never sitting there going, is this a poem or is this prose? It pretty much comes in to me. The subject knows its form. It's not like a decision that I really need to make. So it's really important at all stages. As I was thinking about this, I was remembering how whenever I've read any of the Buddhist lists, and Thich Nhat Hanh is teaching about them, he's always saying, whenever I'm talking about one, I'm also talking about another thing. Like if I'm talking about equanimity, I'm also talking about loving kindness. It's hard to kind of pull them apart. So I'm doing my best here, but they're overlapping and they're interconnected, just like everything. So I have to maintain what I would say is the same kind of attention that we want to bring to meditation. I have to be non-judgmental of whatever's coming forward. I have to be friendly and just open and expansive, like anything is possible. That's really in service of good writing. And then once I really know what I'm working on, I would say there's a shift into composition. So then I've got to start really, really fleshing out whatever it is I'm working on. I think about this like I love to cook soup, because soup is so forgiving. I won't say you can't ruin a soup. You probably can ruin a soup, but it's pretty hard. Soup is tolerant and will take whatever you've kind of got laying around. And that's kind of how I feel I am when I'm first working on something, is trying this, trying that, throwing in all the different things into this kind of soup, and playing with all the possibilities, both of form and of language. And I just love this quote. Robert Frost, he's kind of known as this, I don't know, like high school poet. People read him in high school, but he's actually pretty a profound thinker, and some of his poems really stand the test of time. But he said, this is a quote he says about poetry: every time a poem is written, it is not by cunning, but by belief. The beauty, the something, the little charm of the thing to be is more felt than known. So I'm still kind of with this more feeling than knowing state, really, when I'm first starting to write something out at any length. And then I often turn to the wise Annie Lamott, who has said so many helpful things that go beyond writing, but that also apply to writing. So you've probably heard her shitty first drafts. No, she says, allow yourself to do that. So allow yourself to create a first draft that you probably wouldn't want anybody in the world to see. And she says, quote, perfectionism is a mean, frozen form of idealism, while messes are the artist's true friend. So once I've got something, then I've got to revise. Then nothing comes like, boom, perfect form, ready to go. And I would say that composing and revising they're separate, but there's a lot of back and forth, especially for me. Every writer's different, but I find I just cannot resist kind of fine-tuning and refining even as I go. But I have to be careful. That quote that I just read you from Anne Lamott, perfect sentences, one after another, do not make a good essay. Perfect lines one after another. If you've never gone through that state of messiness where you've kind of allowed everything to come forth, somehow it flattens everything. So I do some revising along the way pretty early, but it's really important not to go too quickly into that. And then it becomes really important to be willing to let go. So here's another piece of just Zen practice in general that I feel like is invaluable to a writer. You have to sometimes actually be willing to let go of something you completely have fallen in love with and you love it, whether it's a phrase or an idea. But if you show it to quite a few people and they're all scratching their heads, there's information there, and you maybe need to put that in a drawer. A lot of you, I'm sure, are familiar with George Saunders. He's a pretty out there fiction writer. I feel like his fiction it takes some endurance to learn how to read it. Although I would say stick with Lincoln in the Bardo if you can, because it is so good. But he talks about, in this great book he has called A Swim in the Pond in the Rain, he's talking about these Russian writers and these particular stories, but then he's talking about craft through these stories. And he's George Saunders, so he brings in a lot of sort of heart and compassion and warmth. And he has a very simple technique, when he's written something, and he needs to evaluate if it's worth sending out into the world beyond his desk. He says he has a very simple he imagines a meter on his forehead. And, one side is, yay or yes, and one side is nay or no. And it's as simple as that. Like, where is the meter? When I'm reading something that I've written, is it way over here on yeah? Or is it like over here on no? Or is it like eh? And you could translate that to your hara, to your gut. I try to really cultivate an instinctual honesty about whether something, can just stands up, whether it stands up. And then somewhere along the way, I got to figure out if I'm done, which, for now, right? until something is sort of like bound in a book form and unrevisable, it's endlessly mutable. And it's really tempting to go back and back and back and back. I love revising, actually. I love the work of that, seeing what's already there, and then seeing how I can chisel away what's not needed and make it as concise as it can be. So I haven't yet kind of distinguished between different kinds of writing. I've been writing since I was very, very young, and started writing like poems for friends and for occasions and things. And I still really love to do that. I mean, if you went to my mom's with me, you would see all over her house are framed little poems I've written for like deceased loved ones in our family. I love to write, eulogies or elegies for people. And those may never go beyond the people who knew that person. But that was kind of, I would say, the first way I started cultivating my writer self. But, something for publication is very different. I'm approaching that very differently. But in both cases, you really need to kind of, and this language actually comes from, I want to credit, Catherine Cascade. When we talk about my writing, she has often said, it's your offering. You make your offering and then you let go. So even when I'm submitting things, which, you guys have been hearing about some successes, which is wonderful right now, but, that is not the norm. I'm just in a nice phase where I'm getting a lot of yeses and affirmation, but so much of the writing life, the past decade of my writing life has been, full of a lot of a lack of that. And, there's pitfalls everywhere. Those 8 worldly winds, of success and failure, praise and blame, pleasure and pain. Envy, is a big emotion for writers as you see someone else who's in a good streak getting their work out into the world. And you're just, going, hello, what about me over here? That's something that's a demon I always need to wrestle with. And probably it's my whole life, as long as I'm going to be putting myself out there as a writer. It just kind of comes with the territory. So something to work with. I distinctly remember saying after Fire Monks came out, I don't know if I just said it to one person or not, but I said, I'll be happy if I can write, I've published one book, if I just get this one book published, and that's good. So that lasted a little while, but I was very wrong. I did not understand that, this is endless. And of course, a writer just wants to keep writing and sharing what they've written, whatever that looks like. So I don't know what Sojin was thinking about exactly when he made my name. I don't think we ever really talked specifically about that, but my Dharma name, is Subtle River, Endless Path. And the endless path part is, the aspirational part of the name, the pointer towards what, I might want to pay attention to. So that's a very, for me, helpful reminder that, it's not, it's not about the outcome. It's really about the path and the process. So people, often ask me what's the hardest part of writing? And I can't say. It really depends on the project. But I do think about those lines at the end of the Genjo Koan about I'll just read them to you. If you say that you do not need to fan yourself, because the nature of wind is permanent, and you can have wind without fanning, you will understand neither permanence, or actually ever presence is Shinshu Roberts' word, and I like that quite a bit. You will understand neither permanence nor the nature of wind. So this is about Dogen's whole question about, if we all have Buddha nature, why do we have to even practice? And it applies to writing too, that it's just this endless kind of practice realization. It's not you get somewhere and you're done. It's within you, but it has to be cultivated, and requires pretty steady commitment and effort. So I'm gonna share a short poem of mine, but I want to say a few things about why I'm sharing this first. So Shohaku Okamura, in this really great book that Linda, pointed out to us, Realizing Genjo Koan, that I'm reading alongside all Shinshu Roberts' book. He uses this phrase that Genjo Koan is about, the grammar isn't quite right if I read this, but he says, our lives are the intersection of the self and all things. So our lives are the intersection of the self and all things. It's such a simple way of stating a lot of what we've been talking about the myriad things and the one, the many and the one. And this really does apply to writing, because it's mysterious to me exactly why the particular is the gate to the universal, or why, a very precise detail in a poem or a story is what gives it life and makes it resonate for a reader. I can't say why that is so. I only know it is so. And I think it has something to do with what, Genjo Koan is about. The closer that the writer comes to suchness, to the essence of something, the more intimate the writer is with it, then the more directly the reader is going to be able to experience that as well, to share in that. And I do know for me that the act of articulation or expression or trying to describe something is a way of being intimate with the world. It's a way of sort of moving towards a more expansive realm that doesn't rely on words through words. You have to get there through words. So I'm going to try to illustrate this with a poem of mine that's in the collection that's coming out in July, and that really came very organically. So I'll just read the poem first, and then I'm going to say a few things about it. It's a couple stanzas long, and it's called Tend, T-E-N-D, Tend. You are whole, someone carved into the bark of a manzanita and painted it white for ease of seeing. Beyond the stuffed little free library, the curbside box of plump Meyer lemons, the sign in a child's cheerful scrawl, please take and enjoy. One morning I simply woke, no longer committed to my sorrow. The scrub jay nest empty for a second spring. Knowing without knowing how, it's possible to grow another heart inside the heart. To be the creek that flows beneath the ground in a rainless year. So this poem actually began as two separate poems that found each other and decided to elope. I was out for a walk. I still walk by this place a lot with Mojo. It's this kind of, old manzanita, and someone had written that message, you are whole, into it. It came up during the pandemic. This is when they did this. And I just stopped when I was walking, when I saw that the first time, and was just filled with so much emotion, like the kindness of this person, that they wanted to tell every walker by that they were whole, and then the little boxes of lemons, that was nearby. It actually wasn't right there. This is, poetic license. Nearby, the free lemons that often are laid out here in the hills when people's lemon trees fruit, because they can't deal with all of the lemons. And then those ubiquitous little free libraries. And there is one actually right next to this manzanita. So, I did not set out thinking, I'm going to write a poem about grief and the letting go of grief. No. I just went home after that walk, and probably I put a voice memo on my phone. I don't actually remember, but I went home after that walk, and I tried to write into what is that feeling that I just had, and how did I get that feeling? Just from something somebody wrote in the tree. And I also love trees, so trees were involved. But that's my main point here, is that it was the image that came forward. It was these myriad things that came forward. And all I did is ask them, what do you want me to know? What is it that you're trying to tell me here? And this poem actually did not change that much, other than, like I said, I had the two. I kind of had the poem about the manzanita and the lemons in the library, and then I had this poem about this empty scrub jay nest that's a little more sort of abstract in its language, and they found each other. Sometimes, things don't ever find their place or their use. I have endless images I've never been able to find a use for anywhere, but when they do, that little phrase that Frost used, the little charm of the thing, gets expressed. So I just want to note a couple other quick things that feel very similar to me about my Zen practice. And I've commented on this to some of you. It's just like both of them take so much time. Zen is not a quick thing. It's not like, I'm just going to run out for 15 minutes and do this. We all know we have to make time for our practice. It's very demanding of time. Writing is very demanding of time. So I could use more than 24 hours, but I also like to sleep. So they both need periods of intense immersion, I think. We do sesshin. I have done writing retreats where I go somewhere where I'm not home and I don't have any of my home responsibilities. And I've got a little casita or a little studio that I write in every day. There's a need for solitude and there's a need for community. I think you absolutely need both to really function. And then I found this quote by Katagiri Roshi, just quick, that I want to read, because if you're familiar with him, he wrote Returning to Silence, and he wrote You Have to Say Something. So catching those two sides of sometimes it's silence and sometimes you really need to say something. He says, make writing your practice. If you commit to it, writing will take you as deep as Zen. So I want to wind down with a question that Greg Denny put to me. I've known Greg a long time, and he wasn't going to be able to be here today and is missing various things related to the practice period. So he asked me to do a little thought experiment with myself. What if, everything I had written and had brought to a state of completion suddenly, disappeared, was just, poof, not on any storage device, not in any notebook, gone. What he said, how would you feel? And what would you do? And would you keep writing? And the short answers are, I'd feel awful. And what would you do? I actually don't know right away. And then would you still write? Yes. So I can say that with utter confidence, because I feel like I just literally, it's like a digestive organ, my writing process. If I don't write, I actually do not know what is going on in my brain and my heart. I am so now too practiced at that being the way that I kind of meet myself. I absolutely know I would do it. I have piles and piles of notebooks like these. They're not fancy. I buy spiral ones that I don't mind shredding at the end, because that's what I do. After I do this free writing and I pull out what I want to continue to work with, these go to the shredder. I don't want them to pile up around me. So, publishing is like only one piece of why I write. I don't want to minimize it. It's important. I mean, it feels incomplete when I can't share my work, but I know that I would keep writing. And I did think, well, okay, I have this book coming out, which actually is, soon. I've seen the final proof. I've seen the cover, first draft. What if that disappeared tomorrow? I would feel a lot of feelings. I have to be honest about that. But I probably think in that instance, I would just completely start over and try and rewrite that book. I've done that before with other projects. The last thing I wanted to share is that, Emily Dickinson once wrote, if I feel physically as if the top of my head were taken off, I know that is poetry. And then we have that phrase, practice as if your head is on fire. So what's similar about these phrases, what they're getting at to me, is they both are pointing at a kind of urgency, like a one-pointed presence, and the potential for transformation. Like if that's not there, it's not poetry. If that's not there, it's not really practice. So I just wanted to invite you. I mean, we have plenty of time to talk, and that's what I wanted to do. But I also want to invite you either now or just to think about, what is it in your life that, isn't formal Zazen. It's not meditation. It doesn't look like meditation, but it's a practice that you feel is, in partnership with your Zen. It could be your family practice. It could be your work practice. It could be art. I mean, anything. But I'm very curious to hear from others about that, how you think about that, whether you're ready to say anything about that now or not. I just wanted to kind of plant that seed. But we've got about 20 minutes, and I just wanted to offer this to you, and then to take any thoughts that you had and share them with the group, or to take any questions that you might have for me. So thank you for listening. And if you have a question, you raise your digital hand or wave at me. I actually can't see everybody. I can only see the folks that have their cameras on.
If you could please raise your digital hand, then I can spotlight you.
Yeah. Maddie.
Hi.
Hello.
First, I want to say I really love your point about the process of iteration and revision, because that's very much how I work. I start with something that is just absolute garbage that I would never show to anybody. And I look at it and I say, what do I not like about this? And then I iterate. And it's like very much a process of optimization. Mm-hmm. And that applies to whether I'm writing code for, a business application, or if I'm doing research, or if I'm drawing something or whatever. And so I've been working on some research now for, I'd say, maybe a year and a half, that very much started in a place that's very different from where it is now. And we were asking about how, can we bring Genjo Koan into this process? And I actually, last night at the Zendo, during the Genjo Koan class, I was staring at this pillar in front of me and thinking about this math problem I've been working on related to manifold geometry and machine learning. And I'm looking at this pillar and I'm like, well, here's this big cylinder and it's this, solid object. And I'm looking at it, there's a crack down the middle and it's full of knots. And I had this moment of just thinking about firewood, fire, and ash. And then I was like, oh, that's not really a solid object. It is a cylindrical form, but it's vascular. It's made up of bundles of fibers. That's the nature of wood. And that sent me off on this whole tangent of thought today, where I completely pivoted on my hypothesis of my research. And I was like, well, what if instead of looking at this manifold geometry, I'm thinking about these fiber bundles? And like it all just kind of clicked. And I wrote down a bunch of math about it. So like, there we go, is another example of that revision. And that, like, that would not have come to me if I hadn't gone to the Zendo last night and sat there and thought about Genjo Koan and stared at this pillar. Mm-hmm. And like, I feel like that's a lot of where inspiration comes from, is when you're not actively writing something down, but you've gone off and you're sitting with something that you have written, and it's in the back of your mind, and then something else pulls it up and you look at it and you say, these things are, structurally isomorphic to each other. Mm-hmm. And here's how that changes the direction of what I want to write next.
Yeah. You do need to, I mean, the part that you're doing there is you're being present. So you could, if you weren't being sort of in a receptive state, it's just a pillar. And you're not going to see all that detail in it that you saw that got your mind, working. So
we're going to pop by Berkeley Bowl.
Can someone mute Hannah?
Okay, flowers and some food for Rosa.
I think you're not muted, Hannah. There we go. So I would just point to that your work there was to be open and noticing. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Lori.
Hi, Colleen.
Hi, Lori in Chicago.
Okay, well then let's talk about family practice. I was hoping other people would have other things to say, but I'm thinking that the content of family practice is nothing but practice, but the form is almost diametrically opposed, and so what do you think about that? I mean, you're doing this thing where being present is so important, and having an open heart and not clinging, not having self-clinging that's making you see things narrowly and from your own perspective, and all the stuff that we know from our practice is vital to apply to your family. But at least I guess it's just with children, so a couple is also a family. And so there's that is also the practice side is operating for sure. But with children, it's like, how do we even do it? How do we even come to one period of Zazen? It's like,
well, you can answer that better than me, but there you are being grandma. How are you doing that? How are you?
Well, I had in mind, if it gets quiet, I can come. It's 9:30 here when the online sitters are sitting at 7:30 online, and that has not happened once, it's not quiet here at that time. And if it is, I forgot, or I'm sleeping, or, something, but I also think about our Sangha, many of us would love to have a way to support parents, but we can't figure out what we're supporting them to do. It's really hard. Over the years, we've tried different things, and sometimes it's more successful, but other churches do better. And, people have this idea, people would bring their kids to family program and think, my kid needs to calm down, and let mindfulness is going to help them calm down. I mean, it's not. It's just not. That's not what's going to help them calm down. So we have this idealization and these misconceptions. So I just wonder, what could we do, to support each other and support each other's practice within this completely antithetical form in a way,
Yeah.
So maybe other people here have something to say too. I don't know.
Yeah. And I think those who, the thing is, I think the people who can answer that question are the people who need that support, who are in it, know what would be possible for them. But I'm also thinking that where you are, you're, you've got your little teacher in Felix, so you're not sitting the 9:30, being able to find time to sit, but isn't he just opening up your eyes?
Yeah. Agreed. And I think for a parent, the sitting would help you. I think it helps, especially if you've established a sitting practice before you had kids, but it does, because you do need a way to practice yourself or come back to yourself and stuff. So I think it can help. But I remember we had this meeting of parents, and we couldn't even find the time of the meeting because everybody had a completely different idea about when the meeting would work for them, and we finally had 2 meetings and then people didn't come, So, I mean, it's interesting because churches do it. Churches do it. Mm-hmm. All churches do it. And there's a lot of, Jodo Shinshu churches, Japanese people have sort of like taken on the form, Japanese communities took on the form of Christian, Sunday morning service in Sunday school, and they do it,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We can improve. Thank you, Lori. Heather, good to see you.
Hi, beautiful talk, Colleen. And I'm so many directions I could go in. Want to shout out my love for Annie Dillard and Robert Frost as well. So maybe some conversations we could have another time on that. But I was thinking when Lori was talking this question of family practice, and I was thinking about Genjo Koan and how Linda has really emphasized a lot about how that practice is about the way you bring the practice to every moment of your life, like to your full aliveness. And I think on the question of family practice in terms of, bringing my son and also just on my own ability to participate in person, it's been a real struggle for me. Like I've really had to mentally wrestle with the fact that I want to be doing more things than I can manage. Mm-hmm. And then over the years, it's just a practice of saying like, you know what, Saturday morning online with the Dharma talk, like that's what's available right now. Like I'm just going to totally show up online for the Dharma talk. And just, I think there's something about, for me, adjusting expectations. And that dovetails really nicely with the Genjo Koan of just, to translate it into total lay language, the whole message is just like simplify. Yeah. Just simplify and be present. And I think you were also talking about that in your writing process as well, of like really getting to the essence and quieting down and slowing down so you can like let the words come through. I think all these things are converging. I'm muddling a lot of thoughts with the point being like simplify.
Yeah.
And being okay with simplifying.
Yeah. And I will just say, I see you. I know that I know that you have that practice. You've never told me that, but I just know because I either see you online or I hear you ask a question and I can tell that that's your practice. Mm-hmm. So I think, as you make your commitment to the chunk that you can take on, mm-hmm. and that I've had to do that with writing too sometimes where like I'm not writing a lot right now. I don't have Shuso does not have a lot of time to write. She's got this little notebook, teeny tiny notebook that she's putting a few thoughts in, but it's just not, I can't do it all right now either. So I think it's really good to remember that and to simplify, like you say. Yeah, you can't go wrong that way.
Yeah.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Colleen. I really reacted when you said about all those notebooks, you just shredded them.
I'm merciless.
Okay, well, I write a lot, and I never write for others' consumption. And it's more to find out what I didn't know I knew, and to try to integrate stuff that's happening and catch the stuff that's arising in dreams or in those special moments that just happen in passing. And oh my gosh, the world jumps out at me and I saw something. And it's, what am I storing it for? I feel like a pack rat or something. And I was trying to reflect on that as you were talking, to undertake the discipline that what you're doing is going to be something that will go out into the wider world. That's almost inconceivable to me.
Well, yeah, it's, they're not unrelated because I have to start where you're starting. If I start, unless, like Fire Monks, for example, I had a contract, right? So I started with an outline, which I would never do that with a piece of creative writing that was just coming out of myself. I have to start where you start and then decide if it's something that's going to be public or if it's just for me. So it's a very different kind of writing. And I think it's fine for you to keep your notebooks. I just would have so many. I don't know how many you have. If I saved them, I would need a second
shelves worth.
Yeah.
And I just, it's that inner confidence somehow that if there is a message there, or if there is something that needs to be added to the stream, water that needs to go into the stream that's flowing by, instead of just sitting in a bowl here.
Yeah.
That confidence to do that, and the sense of where it connects, or what is asking to be said.
Yeah, I think it's that belief, to go back to the Frost quote, it's some sort of trust or belief that like this is worthy. It's like writers have the most fragile and bullish egos ever, because like you do have to have this like kind of insane trust that like people are going to listen to what I'm going to say and it matters and I'm going to put it out there. That's like almost hubris. But then most writers I know are also very kind of fragile and have thin skins and have to deal with a lot of rejection. And so it's a mix of those two things. But I'm really glad you're doing that. I sort of wish everybody would do that, keep a journal for themselves, because it's just a way to taste your life,
It by doing it in daily practice, then walking out of the gate being the journal that you're keeping, walking out of that gate gets so much enriched. And like singing, I don't feel like I have any kind of special voice, but the fact that I show up and sing with others, and that connects us all in a way, it brings our brains, the sides of our brains together in a way that can't happen any other way.
Did you talk to my mom before you? Did you? She's nodding.
Oh, I've never met your mom, I don't think. And I know
she's on screen and she's going like this because it's exactly that. That is what it's about ultimately, right? That it's connecting either to your own inner self, or it's connecting to your community. It's connecting to the life force. All these activities, the singing, Zazen, being in community, writing, they're all about staying connected.
Well, then if you're just walking the path, then things happen. I had, I couldn't talk about it in the class last night because it was too unformed, but that I got to show up for somebody who is on the edge of death, singing with the Threshold Choir, and that he has recovered. And part of it was that his relative told me, oh, he's Quebecois. And I said, oh, I used to live there. And I just started singing from my heart what I had sung when I was raising my children. And his voice, his mouth started moving. He came back.
Wow.
And then yesterday got to sing for his sisters online as he was out in the sun. It's just, there's something, the magic of it is incredible. And it's nothing, it's just being in part of the flow. We're very lucky when those things happen. And I guess being a writer that's committed, things like that happen to you.
Yeah. And if you're lucky, you're paying attention and you're there for it. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa.
I'll keep tasting it.
Good. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.